Okay, so today we're going to look at a third way of solving quadratic equations. Remember, in order to solve a quadratic equation effectively, you need to have it in standard form. The standard form looks something like this: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. It is important to have it in this form in order to use the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is what I'm going to teach you today. When you set up your quadratic formula, you're going to pay attention to each of the coefficients that are right here. The a, the b, and the c. Those are going to become important for you to be able to identify. So if I had a quadratic formula and it looks something like this, 3x squared plus 2x plus 7 equals 0. Okay, now you could take the time and factor it out and you'd find what x equaled. But the quadratic formula for some of the more complicated equations can be the actual lifesaver and go quicker than even factoring could. So if I asked you what a was in this equation, you would look for the number in front of the x squared, and you would tell me that a equaled 3. If I asked you what b equaled, you would look for the number in front of the x and tell me that it was a 2. And if I asked you what c was, you'd look for the number that didn't have an x with it at all, and you would tell me that it was a 7. So now you know how to identify the a, b, and c. Let's look at what we do with it. So the quadratic formula you're going to need to memorize. I've got 2 videos after this one to help you in that process, but for now let's identify it. The quadratic formula says that x will equal negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So when you have this formula, all you have to do is plug in your values for a, b, and c, use your calculator, and solve. The thing to pay attention to is you're going to have to solve this twice. You're going to have to solve it once when you add the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and once when you subtract it. Okay? Now, another very valuable thing can come from this quadratic formula, and that would be this part right here. This part right here is called the discriminant. It equals b squared minus 4ac. So whatever you get that's underneath the square root sign, that's the discriminant. It doesn't include the square root sign. What the discriminant can tell us is how many possible solutions there are going to be for x. So if the discriminant is negative, then there are 0 solutions, or 0 real solutions is what I should say. Now, if the discriminant is positive, there will be 2 real solutions for x, and if the discriminant is equal to 0, then there is going to be 1 real solution. Okay, so that's a very important part of this for you to understand. Okay, let's try a couple practice problems. First off, we've got 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0. This is in standard form. We can identify right away that this is a, this is b, nope, and this is c. All right, a, b, c, we need to know that. we know that the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so now let's plug it in. This means that x is going to equal a negative b. b is 3, so negative 3. Let's do the plus first. The square root of b squared, 3 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is a negative 5. You've got to keep this negative with that number. All over 2a, which is 2 times 2. Okay? Now, we can also set up, as we do this, the minus part of it. So negative b minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so that means we're going to have a negative 3 plus the square root of 9 minus 4 times 4 times 2 is 8, times a negative 5 is a negative 40. Well, if you subtract a negative 40, remember this is the same thing as saying plus a positive, so we could just say plus 40 all over 4, because 2 times 2 is 4. Likewise over here, we'd have a negative 3 minus the square root of 9 plus 40 all over 4. So you have a negative 3 plus the square root of 49 divided by 4, negative 3 minus the square root of 49 divided by 4. So x equals negative 3 plus 7 over 4. This is the same as saying 4 over 4, or x equals 1. Over here, you're going to have negative 3 minus 7 all over 4. This is the same thing as negative 10 over 4, or a negative 5 halves. So your answer would be then x equals 1 or a negative 5 halves. And that's how you use the quadratic formula. Okay, let's try one more. 2x equals x squared minus 3. Now notice this isn't in standard form, so before you can do anything else, you've got to put it in standard form. And you want to keep that coefficient in front of the x squared a positive number. So you're going to want to subtract your 2x from both sides. When you do that, you get that 0 equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. This is standard form. It can either be 0 equals this, or it can be this equals 0. Either way, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter which order it goes in. Well, now it's in standard form. Now you can identify A, B, and C. And you're going to fill out your quadratic formula. X equals negative B. Well, this is a negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared, negative 2 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 3, all over 2 times 1. Okay, so a negative 2 is just a positive 2, plus or minus the square root. Negative 2 squared is 4, minus 4 times 1 is 4, times a negative 3 is negative 12. So minus a negative 12 is like saying plus a positive 12 all over 2. Okay, so this equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 16 all over 2. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about this number that we got right here under the square root sign. That is that value that I talked about up here called the discriminant, right? And because we know that the discriminant on our sample problem down here is equal to 16, it's a positive number based on this that I taught you at the beginning. If the discriminant is positive, we're going to have 2 solutions. This is how you understand that. So now let's find our 2 solutions. We know that x can equal 2 plus the square root of 16, which is 4 over 2. This is going to be 6 over 2, which is equal to 3. Or x can equal 2 minus the square root of 16, which is 4, over 2, which is going to be a negative 2 over 2, or a negative 1. X equals 3 or negative 1 would be your answer. So that's how you use the quadratic formula. That's how you find the discriminant. Your homework is posted after the next 2 videos. The next 2 videos are ways to help you memorize this quadratic formula, because you will need to be able to memorize it for me. Okay? I hope you have a great day. I'll look forward to seeing you later. Bye.